Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Alumni Triton Talk. I'm Greer Wattson, the head sailing coach here at Eckerd, and today I'm talking to one of our own alumni, Lara Dallman-Weiss. Lara is a 2011 graduate and four-year member of the sailing team. She was captain her senior year on the sailing team. She was Sailor of the Year for both skippering and crewing. Her greatest achievement while here at Eckerd in college sailing was placing third at the ICSA Women's College Nationals her junior year. After graduating, Lara has been campaigning for the Olympic Games. She spent 5 years sailing professionally and working in sailing media. In 2018, she started campaigning for Tokyo 2020, now 2021, with Nikki Barnes in the women's 470 class. So welcome, Lara. Are you ready to talk a little bit about your experience?
I'm ready. Let's go for it.
Okay, awesome. So we have a couple questions for you. The first question, you're campaigning for the Olympics, and honestly, you've been sailing professionally at the highest level for quite some time. Can you kind of walk us through your journey of campaigning over the past few years, and then specifically kind of your campaign journey for the Olympics?
Yeah, for sure. So I'd say my journey has been a lot different than a lot of the other U.S. sailing contenders. So I grew up in Minnesota, and I was a runner, a dancer, a basketball player. And it was my junior year assistant coach, Josh Putnam, that said, I really have the size to sail 470s. And I didn't know really what a 470 was. I thought it was just like a bigger version of a 420.
Right.
And so junior year, I actually bought, with help of someone else, like a really beat up boat and started campaigning and getting into it with my skipper from Eckerd. And we sailed domestically, and we did it for about a year. And even though we didn't, most of 470 sailing is really international, and you have to have the funds to get overseas. We didn't have that, but that was really important for me to learn how to have my own boat and really just fix everything and drive around the country and just meet everyone that I could in the Olympic world. So after that didn't really play out, ran out of money, I started sailing with actually a different Nikki, and she was 5 years younger than me. And so the two of us, I think in that part of my Olympic campaign journey, we really took it seriously and said, all right, we're going to become the right weight. I gained 20 pounds, and we're going to fundraise, and we're going to, really take this seriously. And a few months into that, she went to college because she was younger than me. And so that put me in this really weird spot of this is my dream, but I have no one to sail with and no money. And so that's when I met up with one of my friends, Johnny. He said, we've got this boat, come sail on it. It was a Swan 42. And the program that they had was this amazing, world-class, just really fun program. So that's where I learned professional sailing had something there. And I'm so grateful for that group. And so then I could just kind of spent the next 5 years, I'm the size to sail on so many different boats. And I really loved that I could travel everywhere. And so for free.
Absolutely.
So was doing a lot of that. And, I worked at North Sails. I learned how to splice. I just did everything I could and kind of kept my Olympic dream on the back burner. And just always wondered if I'd find the right person to sail with. And so then
you kept busy and learned all the kind of building blocks that it took to be able to be successful campaigning. Working at a sail loft is super valuable experience to fix your sails down the line for sure. That kind of leads into our next question. Your partner, Nikki Barnes, has a different story as well. And I know that part of the teaming up process kind of comes a little bit from US sailing, but could you kind of walk us through how you two were paired up and became, such a successful partnership?
Yeah, for sure. Well, we have this really interesting balance, the two of us. So she grew up in St. Thomas, so she had this really chill islands upbringing, and I grew up, in Minnesota with more strict athletic, upbringing. And then she went to the Coast Guard, and which couldn't be more opposite from Eckerd. And so she, it was Mike Marshall, who works at North Sails. He paired the two of us up, and he told her that, there's this crew that's a great size and knows a lot about sailing. And he told me that there's this awesome skipper, and I looked her up, and she's college women's sailor of the year. She won nationals. She has the biggest resume. And I was like, all right, let's give her a try.
I know.
So she's just incredible. So when he told us to start sailing together, we went out for coffee, and so we just had a very business-like meeting.
It's so opposite of sailing.
Yeah, which is so funny because we're both very loose and chill. But then we went out for a sail, and there were a couple other boats, and just right away, we didn't have to communicate or anything. We just got the boat going really fast and naturally sailed well together. So it was a really good pairing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I remember when I first got involved with Eckerd, I had heard there was an Eckerd alum campaigning in the 470 class. I was like, oh, I sailed against Nikki Barnes. I know she's campaigning, and she's, such a great sailor. And then when I realized it was the two of you together, I was like, oh my God, that's awesome. So I've really loved following your guys' campaign. For those of the non-sailors watching and people that aren't super familiar with Olympic sailing, can you kind of explain why a lot of your training has to happen internationally, especially in Europe, and kind of explain why that European circuit is so important into getting to the top of the international game?
So it's something that we're actually trying to change right now. US Sailing would love for things to move more domestically, but we just don't have the numbers that they have in Europe. So, for example, we did a training camp in France last year as a week long, and there were about 5 of the top women's teams we got to sail with, but their junior program there, they had about 25 other 470s on the water, and we're lucky if we can find 2 to 3 boats to sail with here in the US, and that was just in France. And so you get the numbers there. And then also equipment wise, we'd have to ship our stuff everywhere, depending on where we sail. And so if most of the events we sail in and race in are in Europe, we ship our stuff over there. It makes sense to stay and train and just keep everything there instead of flying back and forth. So,
yeah. The other thing I think a lot of people may not realize is, college sailing, we're so lucky that we can go to a different college or university over a weekend, and we can use their equipment and their boats, and they're all the same. Whereas in the international sailing circuit, you're very in tune with your boat. You spend hours and weeks tuning your boat to be set up the way you guys like it, and certain people like it. And your equipment is your equipment. And so I think that if you want to elaborate on that, you can, but I think that that's a really, really stark difference from college.
No, that's such a good point. And I sometimes forget, the gap of how much I've learned and how far I've come. But they say the cheapest sailing you'll ever do in your life is college sailing, and sailing internationally. We always think that we're behind because we're we didn't grow up sailing Olympic boats,
right.
Like a lot of the other European countries or international teams, but they envy us for having the college sailing culture. And I think that's something that, even though Nikki and I have different backgrounds and we didn't know each other very well, coming from college sailing, we're kind of on the same page about a lot of things. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So a little bit about the coronavirus outbreak, how has your training changed? How's your routine changed since having to postpone the Olympics a whole extra year? Has it changed in your routine? And then also, obviously, with us all not being able to live life as we used to know it.
It's changed a lot and I'd say for the better for our team, because we came into the 4-year Olympic cycle a year late, and so we were just kind of like always running behind. And there's so many different categories that go into Olympic sailing. There's fitness, the mental training, the tuning of your boat. There's the sail development. There's all these categories, and so we kind of had to attack several things at once in the past 2 years. And so now that we have this pause, we can stop and go back and look at each thing and see where we can now make the biggest gains. So that's actually been really good for us. And I think, that people sail the 470 for 15 years. And so the two of us have been together 2 years. And so just any extra time we can get is really good for us. So that's changed. And then I think just the whole, I'm used to multitasking and, running our social media and fundraising and everything on top of learning how to sail. And so now I can stop and really work on my fitness or meditation or, anything, but a lot more slowly.
That's good. That's great. Yeah. It's almost like a reflection period almost.
Yeah, I think everyone needs that.
I think we all do, yeah. So kind of backing it up a little bit towards your college sailing career, how did you end up choosing Eckerd?
So I have to give Andrew Keene the credit for that. He was 2 years older than me, and we grew up sailing on the same lake. Okay. And so he went to Eckerd, and there's a few Minnesotans that went to Eckerd. And so I remember in high school, my senior year, having a call with him, and he was sitting on the beach, and he was like, all right, here's the most important thing. That temperature where it's not hot, it's not cold, it just doesn't feel like anything, and you don't appreciate it because it's so perfect. He's like, that's what I'm standing in right now, and I'm on the beach. And I was like, all right, that's tempting. And I had actually committed to Eau Claire, a school in Wisconsin. It was a D2 running school, and I had a scholarship, and I had my roommate and put the deposit down and everything. And we were even talking about who's going to buy the fridge, who's going to buy the TV. And I just had this awful sinking feeling one of the last days in high school that I was making this horrible decision. And so I called my dad from the lunch table and was like, I need to go to Eckerd. And he's like, all right, but you've got to do it all yourself. So you've got to call, make everything right with both schools. And so I did, and it's the best decision.
What is your favorite thing about Eckerd as a whole?
Favorite thing about Eckerd, I think just the whole vibe of the school. I know that every time I come back into St. Pete, it's just such a special place with, the beaches and all the beautiful banyan trees. And I think the whole creative, unique vibe that Eckerd gives off and lets students be, that's made a huge impact on who I am now. And it's one thing that our coach is always telling us, that you can't copy any other top teams. You're not going to get to the top, being someone else. You've got to be yourself. You've got to be genuine. And that's totally something that I learned, and Eckerd helped me develop. And so just I think back to all my friends there, and everyone's such a unique person. And the fact that we have a beach on campus, and the stingray tanks and the on the water classroom, you don't find that anywhere else. So I love that.
That's awesome. Yeah. If you could give an incoming freshman one piece of advice, looking back on it now, hindsight's 2020, what would you say?
make use of the pet dorms. No, I just think that's really
not
neat.
what I was expecting you to say, but
I think about a couple things looking back. I know that I would I really missed running in my life. And so I'd go to the beach in the mornings and go for runs. And I think that was really special. I wish I did that more. And I remember, this is really random, but I remember the CEC CAF, they would allow us to bring our own, there's a Chef Troy there, and we could bring our own recipes and he'd cook us whatever we wanted.
Oh, wow. That's
But
nice.
yeah, if I had to sum it up, I'd say just do what makes you you. And that kind of went into me. For 2 years. I didn't declare a major, but I knew I loved the school and I knew I loved sailing there. And so I designed my own major. And I really just followed my heart and followed my dream. And that's Eckerd supports that. So
That's true.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you, Lara. For those watching, you guys can keep up with Lara and Nikki and their campaign at perfectvisionsailing.com or on social media via Facebook and Instagram at Perfect Vision Sailing. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time for another Alumni Triton Talk. Go Triton.